Very warm welcome to everyone, to the speakers in particular, also because you're not only speakers, but authors of very nice papers in a book, The Promise of Higher Education. And we have with us also here today the Nathalie Reborn, representing the publishing house, who has a little surprise for everybody in petto, so that will come as well. Very, very pleased to see you all on the screen after all that you contributed to the work of the IAU over the years and over the last year. And so as Secretary General, I'm just only here to say a warm welcome to you, to the participants who are coming in little by little. And I see many friends and colleagues in the list of participants. But I'm here also to give the floor to Pam Fredman, who's the president of the International Association of Universities and who will be the moderator of this session. A thank you to Andreas Corcoran, whom you all met via all the emails that you've received in coordinating this session. And you will hear of him, from him during the session as well. And I give the floor to you now, Pam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So welcome all to this session, which is the end of the celebratory year, IAU 70 years. And I hope the start of many decades where IAU with its members, institutions, associates and partners will jointly engage and cooperate in promoting and advocating for the role of higher educations for a democratic and sustainable societal future beyond Agenda 2030. So what better opportunity to mark this milestone than to publish a book with a selection of essays from current and former members of the IAU. Essays that revisit the past, analyze the present, and look into the future. In short, how the IAU's latest 70 years has helped to shape the agenda of the future. So this is the third and final book launching webinar on the promise of higher education. There has been one before, and the first one was coding the values in changing higher education landscape. And the second one was the promise of higher education and its future. So I will take the opportunity to thank all authors for their fantastic and valuable contributions. And at the same time, I have to underline that with 82 authors in the book, there is a time limit for these 3 events, and not everyone could speak at one of those events. And we have tried to look in the selections for a regional balance. But of course, all authors are invited to celebrate the launch with us, and please get involved in the debate following the presentations. The book has already been a success, and I'm proud to say that there has been 175,000 downloads so far, and I think that's very good for the higher education and for the IAU. So this session will focus especially on part 1 and 2 of the book. Part 1 being 70 years of higher education cooperation and advocacy, and part 2 facilitating international cooperation. And in this session, really look at the IAU and in its context, in the past and also in the possible future. And this is also why we choose this session as the one to be tackled on the day of the celebratory end years. So the schedule is very tight, as you have seen, and each speaker has been given 5 minutes maximum. And I have a bell, which I hope you can hear, which I will ring on when 4 minutes has passed, just to let you know that you can round up. I will introduce each one of the speakers, and I will not give the floor to any questions in between the speakers. We will have time, hopefully, at the end when all have been spoken to raise questions. We are also very grateful to the publishers of the book Springer, and Hillage already said that you will announce that you will organize a raffle with the 10 prizes on offer. And as winner can choose either a print ebook or from your higher education segment. And the drawing of the winner will be at the end. So please, everyone, stay to the end and see to that you could be one of the winners. So with these words, I have the pleasure to invite to the floor Nathalie Reborn, the editor of Springer for Language, Education and Educational Psychology, to announce, to participate and win the books and the raffle, which will take place. So the floor is yours, Natalie. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Pam, and thank you everyone for having me here. We're very honored to have your book in our portfolio, and it's great to have it as an open access book, so it's accessible to anyone in the world. To celebrate today, we are giving away 10 free books, and those are free books of choice in our higher education portfolio. You can choose this to be an ebook or a printed book. And in order to participate, I will share a link now for a Google Sheet where you can enter your name and email. The information that you put there will only be used for this purpose, and afterwards the list will be deleted. But please do be aware that if you do enter your name there, your name might appear at the end of the session as a winner. So I will open the spreadsheet. You can enter your name all the way through the session, and at the end I will announce the 10 winners. Good luck to all the speakers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And let's get started. So the first speaker is Juan Ramon de la Fuente. And is the permanent representative of Mexico to United Nations and is the former president of International Association of Universities between 2008 and 2012. He served as the Mexico's Minister of Health and as Professor Emeritus and former rector of the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And the title is the IAU and Contemporary Global Challenges, a Latin American Point of View. The floor is yours, Juan.
Thank you very much, Pam. And at the outset, I would like to thank the IAU, the staff and the editors for inviting me to participate in this collective effort, and also to thank our publisher. I think the editors are to be particularly congratulated, as they were able to give coherence to dozens of papers that are in general very good. I mean, are high quality, but to make the connection on the different parts of the book was not an easy task. And so I appreciate that very, very much, because now we have a document that I'm not surprised it's been so successful. It was a very much needed publication, because IAU remains as a unique global voice for higher education, and that voice needs to be heard. And this book will be a major contribution on that effort, and I hope it will also give the IAU the opportunity to remain becoming each time more visible, because I think it's these days much what IAU can do. And I will just focus on one point I made in my very brief contribution to the book, and has to do with a problem that I think is of major concern to most of us, one of the maladies of our times, and is this information disorder that we are all living, and where IAU and higher education institutions can contribute to solve that problem. Because this information disorder is creating a chaos all over in many spheres. And we need, if we want to build back better after the pandemic, we need to start by building trust. And here is where I think IAU and all the institutions of higher education around the world have to make a very clear compromise. We need to build trust. We need to curb the crisis of trust and truth. And I think higher education institutions are the institutions that can help literally the world to curb the crisis of trust and truth. So reliable information is one of our strengths. Universities know how to collect, create, reliable information. And we need to use that to become more visible and become major players in different parts of societal activities. So I think that if this book, as I am sure it will, contributes to make that voice to be heard louder, and we commit ourselves to be the providers of reliable information, the one that is generated and systematized in our institutions, I think we are playing a big and important role in this endeavor that we all have to share, which is to build back better after the COVID pandemic. So again, Pam, colleagues and friends, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this effort. And I'm always very honored to be back at IAU, an institution that is really in my heart for many, many reasons, and that I hope I can contribute being part of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ramon, and thank you for bringing up trust and truth, and I think we will come back to that. So the next speaker is Pavel Zgaga, and is a professor of philosophy and education at the Faculty of Education, University of Ljubljana, and co-founder and director of the Center for Educational Policy Studies at the University of Ljubljana. Also, Pavel is the former Minister of Education and Sport of Slovenia between 1999 and 2000. So welcome, Pavel.
Thank you, and good morning to some, good evening to some, and good afternoon from Ljubljana, my place. I must confess I was delighted, but also in a special way surprised by the invitation to contribute to the monograph which we are celebrating today. It reminded me, first of all, how quickly time flies. The fact that we lit 70 candles on the IAU's cake this year coincided with the same number of candles on my own cake. So it is difficult to me to talk about the 70 years of IAU mission and the 70 years of international cooperation in higher education in general, unless I talk about it from a very personal, indeed intimate point of view. Of course, from this perspective, I cannot say much about the first 2 decades of that mission because I was simply too young in the 50s and early 60s. The fact that there are universities, that there are different universities in different world regions, I only became aware of when I enrolled my university, University of Ljubljana, in 1970. In this respect, the period of undergraduate studies was marked by 3 important experiences, all of them related to international cooperation in higher education. First, there was the experience of the first days after my accommodation in the student dormitory. Besides colleagues from my then home country, Yugoslavia, I met a number of colleagues from the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and other parts of the world. It was the time of the so-called non-aligned movement in which my country played a prominent role. And the byproduct of this movement was also intensive international cooperation in higher education. The day-to-day encounters, conversations, coffee together with students from these different places of the world gave me a cosmopolitan experience that I still appreciate today. It made me realize how important it is for the global academic community to be connected. The next experience, which I like to remind, was my first mobile period, as we now call an academic pilgrimage. It was not Erasmus, it was too early. But 2 years in a row, I participated in a summer school in the Netherlands, Maastricht, whose theme was actually European integration. This brought me the next no less important experience, I think, the experience of European identity as a kind of cosmopolitan experience of a different order, but still. And it also convinced me of the importance of for academic communities to work across borders, because only then we can really contribute to the broadening, deepening, and extension of knowledge, and to the pursuit of peace, cultural understanding, and cooperation, not only in Europe, but all over the world. My third experience, still related to my undergraduate studies, was the experience of the student movement of 1968 and beyond. From a much later perspective, a certain amount of naivete may be visible in these movements. But even today, I think that this was their real strength. The attempt to see the world around us in a different light, or the attempt to form a new paradigm, if I may put it that way. By this, I mean not only the political dimension and the commitment to more democracy within student movements across the world of that time, but complex value dimensions such as gender equality, cultural equality, global equality, and so on. It became clear to me that this trend is largely fueled by efforts of academia again. So today, things are different, perhaps 50 years later, but as reflect on when I reflect on the 70th birthday of IAU and myself, I reflect on the path that has not always been straightforward. I must admit, it has had ups and downs, but I believe that efforts in the field of internationalization of higher education have led to what I try to say in my chapter in this monograph, to confront global inequalities with the world ethics. And at that occasion, I'm firmly convinced that the IAU will continue along this path, which has been paved by generations of the last 7 decades. And I am also convinced that the generations to come will continue to contribute it. My best wishes for the next 70 years.
Yeah, thank you. I think we will have ups and downs also the next coming 70 years, unfortunately.
Why not?
Thank you very much. And then I will leave the floor to Laura Rumbley, who is Associate Director of Knowledge and Development and Research at the EAIE. Before joining the EAIE, she was Associate Director of the Boston College Center for International Higher Education. I give the floor to you, Laura.
Thank you so much, Pam. First and foremost, I want to convey warmest congratulations and sincerest thanks to the EAIU from the EAIE, the European Association for International Education. You've reached a marvelous milestone of 70 years. We were delighted to be able to be invited to contribute to the celebratory volume. And for myself personally, it's been an enormous honor to be involved in this project. So thank you again and congratulations. My approach to the assignment to craft an essay for this collection was to start with essentials. And the essentials came quite naturally to me from the very name of the organization that we're celebrating today. So this is to say that I built my reflections around 3 main pillars: universities, associations, and internationalization. And what I think these entities and this phenomenon can and should offer to our shared future on this planet, and what they require from us in order to deliver on their potential. Secondly, I think it's fair to say that I grounded my reflections quite unabashedly in a message of hope. That comes from a personal place. I'm an optimist by nature, but it also comes from my professional experience working for the last 25 years in the field of international higher education and research at both universities and international education associations, where the focus has been in one shape or another on ultimately improving the human condition. I think hope can only carry us so far though. So for me, the future hinges on a combination of hope, collaboration, and very hard work to support the institutions and processes that help us learn from the past, generate new solutions, and foster the development of subsequent generations who question, care, and persevere. There is no doubt that our shared future is complex and fraught with many, many challenges, the likes of which we have never seen before, and the likes of which we have also seen far too frequently over the course of human history, which is particularly maddening, I think. But I do remain hopeful because from where I sit, universities, associations, and the transcendent power of internationalization in higher education, these things offer models and mechanisms that can set us up for some degree of success when it comes to addressing the tremendous challenges that we face locally and globally. So briefly, what do I see in universities, associations, and internationalization that makes me place such great stock in their potential and in the importance of advocating passionately for their support? Universities, for all of their imperfections, when they are properly funded and judiciously governed, when they are simultaneously allowed to operate autonomously and held accountable for their actions, they are purpose-built to push the boundaries on the existing limits of our knowledge and our capacity to innovate in service to society. They are unique repositories of human and technological potential that can, and I would argue regularly do, change the world. We need these institutions to operate at the top of their game to ensure our best chances for a better future. Associations, and here I'm speaking specifically, of course, of higher education associations, as well as networks, consortia, multilateral partnerships and alliances. These provide a vitally important shared space for peers to connect, learn from, and ideally enhance the work that they do in the ways that they do it. Fellowship and mutual learning are at the heart of the matter here. Very importantly, associations can also amplify and clarify the messages that our societies need to hear about what the higher education sector stands for and what it has to offer. So shaping the narrative is an important role for associations in higher education. In a period of deep fragmentation within and across societies, that loss of trust that we heard about initially, this need for smart, compelling, and collective action and messaging by higher education in support of evidence-based decision-making and balanced civic dialogue is crucial. We need to ensure that the kinds of reinforcing and value-added avenues for collaboration and connection that are offered by associations like IAU remain strong and viable at a time when both higher education and international engagement face enormous challenges. Finally, to internationalization. The pessimist in me recognizes that we are locked in an increasingly crowded, often painfully interconnected, fragile, and unequally resourced planet. We affect one another, we need one another. So we need our education systems and institutions to operate in sync with that reality. There are many ways to do this, but the bottom line is that without educating students and enabling our institutions to engage meaningfully with the unfamiliar and the different, near and far, and without being open to being transformed, at least somewhat by that process, we are lost. Internationalization matters that much. To summarize, as we look to the future, I see great promise in universities on the basis of the knowledge they can provide to guide us. I perceive great power in associations. They offer fellowship to sustain us and economies of scale to elevate and amplify messaging and impact. And I feel an enormous sense of urgency with respect to internationalization, given our urgent need to foster perspectives that value all of humanity and the physical environment that makes it possible for us to inhabit this planet. I thank IAU for everything it's done so far to advance this agenda and also wish it a wonderful next 70 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Laura, and also connecting to the student perspective and the education, as Pavel also brought up from his startup in the academic world from the beginning. So thank you very much. And then I would like to leave the floor to Pankaj Mittal, who is the Secretary General of the Association of Indian Universities. She has served in senior positions at the University Grants Commission of India and as the first Vice Chancellor of Bhagat Phool Singh, I don't think I can pronounce it, Haryana, the first rural women's university of North India, which I think it's a step forward, which was even thought about 70 years back. I give the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Pam. Thanks a lot. And namaste from India, which is a substitute for all good mornings, afternoons, evenings, nights, everything. So one namaste from India. And I think this is a greeting which everybody has taken over after the corona pandemic. So no handshakes, only namaste. So first of all, let me congratulate IAU, first for completing 70 glorious years, and second for producing this beautiful document. When Hilije asked me, at that time I was very new to AIU. I'm only 2 years old in Association of Indian Universities. As you told, my previous organization was University Grants Commission. So when she told me to contribute, I wasn't knowing much about associations because I was very new, but then I thought, okay, let me contribute. And I was thinking that we will be having a big physical event, but of course, thanks to Corona, the one big physical event was converted into 3 online events, and the launch of the book was there. So in the new normal, we had many meetings, and earlier I was thinking that, okay, IAU, if we are a member, we'll go and meet them once in a year, but now there is multiple times in a year in this new normal. So it was a great experience. And when I saw the book, I said, oh my God, it is such a nice book. And it has come up so well, thanks to Springer for bringing it so well. I mean, it was really a learning experience to read the book. My contribution in that was about creating engaged students, creating responsible and engaged students. So what I felt was that the universities, of course, they are meant for doing a lot of teaching, learning, research, extension. But one of the major objectives of the universities is to look towards the community development, towards the societal development, because that is also one of the main agendas of the universities. And keeping that in mind, in India, our Association of Indian Universities, again, is a large association. We have right now 870 universities as our members, including around 17 international members. So this year's, our whole year is dedicated to realizing sustainable development goals through higher education institutions. So we believe that higher education institutions have a role to play in all the sustainable development goals, not only in SDG 4, which relates to education, but all the 17 sustainable development goals. So 2 conferences are already over, and everybody is almost overwhelmed that how could we even think of realizing SDGs without the contribution of HEIs. So therefore, I really feel that the universities have a lot to contribute, not only realizing SDGs, but in the community development across the university. And that is why when I was Vice Chancellor of that university, first center which was established was Center for University Society Interface and Research. So there we did a lot of work regarding engaging with the community, joint research projects, engaging the community in learning, sort of having practitioners as teachers in the universities. So it was such a wonderful experience that after coming back to UGC from the university, we floated it as a national scheme. In India, it is of course not new because National Service Scheme is there where the university students are contributing to the development of the society. But then we also had a special scheme called Unnat Bharat Abhiyan, in which all the universities, especially the IITs, were contributing in the sense that they were making technologies which are best suited for the university, for the community, or even customizing the existing technologies for the benefit of the society. So what I feel is that the universities can be contributing to the society and in the realization of sustainable development goals, but for there is a need of partnership between the universities world over, partnership between the universities and the society, partnership between the university and the government, partnership between the university and the alumni, partnership between the universities and the industry. So unless these partnerships are there, we cannot think of this particular role of universities. So in my opinion, partnerships are very, very important, not only for international collaborations, but also to see that the universities work in a responsible manner. We talk of corporate social responsibility, but it is time that we start talking about university social responsibility. We start talking about individual social responsibility, so that everybody is responsible for the society. So that is what I wanted to share with you. So thank you very much. And once again, my best wishes to International Association of Universities. And very soon, AIU will be celebrating its 100 years in 2025. So at that time, we'll be in touch with you and we'll all celebrate it together. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for bringing up the responsibility, and also something that we have to look into, the inequalities where 50% are females and we see some bad signs. So I'm sorry, Hans, I missed you in the, so now it's your turn. So Hans de Wit is professor and former director of the Center for International Higher Education at Boston College, USA. He is senior fellow at the IAU. And I'm not sure, but we have several senior fellows, and we very much appreciate that. He is a founding member and past president of the European Associations for International Education, and he is founding editor of the Journal of Studies in International Education. So please, the floor is yours, Hans.
Thank you, Pam, and congratulations again to IAU for its 70th anniversary. Like Pavel, I am also celebrating my 70th anniversary during the ceremony. So we are in the same period. And of that, over the past 40 years, I've been active in international higher education as a practitioner and a scholar. And by that, I've been following the IAU in all its activities. Congratulations also on the book, to which I make a contribution together with my colleague and former director of the Center for International Higher Education, Philip Albach. And I also make briefly a reference to a second contribution I had together with my colleague and friend Elspeth Jones, Professor Emeritus on Internationalization of Education of Leeds Beckett University. During the past 70 years, internationalization in tertiary education has evolved from being a very marginal activity to becoming one of the key aspects of the reform agenda. And IAU is playing a very active role in the involvement of that process. So in this short presentation, I present some of the key historical and current developments and the role of IAU in them, and look at the future as well. If we look at the history, political events, most notably between the two world wars and after the Second World War, in the first half of the 20th century, led to a very focus on higher education on promoting peace and mutual understanding through international cooperation and exchange. The creation of the Institute of International Education in the United States in 1919, the DAAD in Germany in 1925, and the British Council in the UK in 1934 are illustrations of that development. A development that went on and even was stronger after the Second World War with, for instance, the establishment of the Fulbright program in the United States in 1946. So also the creation of IAU in 1950 can be placed in that context of where there was an important focus on international collaboration and on the contribution that higher education could make to peace and mutual understanding in the world. And although we might have been very disappointed by the effectiveness of that role, it's still a driving and certainly in the current context important dimension that we have to advocate for. In the years after 1950, Cold War rationales of national security and foreign policy increasingly took over, a challenge that we see now as well. The Cold War became the principal rationale to foster an international dimension of higher education. And what had started as incidental and individual activities evolved into organized international education programs, driven still more by national governments and by universities, and in general from a very small scale. Only at the end of the 1980s and of the Cold War, also in Europe stimulated by the unification process and the related educational research programs such as Erasmus, and globally by the increasing importance of higher education and research for the global knowledge economy, internationalization became more important and institutions became more strategic in developing strategies and policies. But the traditional emphasis in internationalization was on exchange and cooperation to contribute to a better understanding of different cultures and languages, as well as for research collaboration. And what we have seen that in the mid-1990s, as a result of the factors that I mentioned, a gradual but increasingly visible shift has been taking place towards much more competition as a driving rationale for internationalization. This focus on internationalization as a tradable commodity at the same time created a reaction. It resulted at the end of the century in appeals for a return to ethics and values of cooperation by the internationalization at home movement in Europe in reaction to the focus on the Erasmus exchanges, claiming what about the other 95% of non-mobile students? And the call for internationalization of the curriculum in the United Kingdom and Australia in reaction to the exclusive focus on international student recruitment and offshore delivery of higher education. The IAU, in response to these actions, started in 2012 an initiative to rethinking the concept of internationalization, its outcomes and the work of national and disciplinary approach activities. And in 2015, a study for the European Parliament on the state of internationalization in higher education, in which IAU was actively involved, and I was the leading of that process, reflected this new line of thinking about we have to look at the values and ethics of internationalization. It promoted a new agenda for the future with the following definition of internationalization, an update of the definition by Jane Knight from the 1990s, as saying it is an intentional process of integrating an international, intercultural, or global dimension to the purpose, functions, and delivery of post-secondary education. But in order to enhance the quality of education and research for all students and staff and to make a meaningful contribution to society. This updated definition gives us a normative direction to the process by emphasizing that such a process does not happen automatically, but needs to be intentional by its stakeholders. That it's not a goal in itself, but must make a contribution to the quality improvement of what we as institutions do, that it should not be an advantage reserved for a small elite of mobile students and scholars, but benefit all. And finally, that it should also benefit society. At the same time, there emerged a move away from internationalization as a purely Western concept. As Elspeth Jones and I have been addressing, internationalization should no longer be considered in terms of a westernized, largely Anglo-Saxon and predominantly English-speaking paradigm. And we are glad to see that many recent studies are focusing on that important aspect of decolonization of the curriculum and of internationalization. The reality of internationalization as a tradable commodity, though, is still strongly prevalent. The rise of nationalist populist movements, bans on immigration, attacks on academic freedom, anti-globalist protests, geopolitical tensions, and in Europe also anti-integration trends, say Brexit, but all have negative implications for the internationalization of the future. And also we have to take into account issues like climate change, health issues like the COVID crisis, that all have an implication on what we are doing. But internationalization and higher education cannot return to old habits.
Past your time.
Yes, I'm finishing.
Okay.
And needs entering a new phase and new forms, a shift from internationalization abroad for a small elite to internationalization at home and virtual exchange for all students and staff. And to end, internationalization is a process in constant evolution, which changes in response to the local, national, regional, and global environments. And current global trends appear to be more radical than the past, and IAU plays an important role in bringing internationalization back to its cooperative foundation. And I hope that we will be able to do that together in the future. Thank you very much, and sorry for being a little bit over time.
Thank you very much. And I think that rethinking the internationalization will be something which is very important for the next years to come. So with this, I will leave the floor to Outi Snellman, who has worked in international education and the development of cooperation in higher education in the circumpolar region for over 25 years in her capacity as the Director of International Relations at the University of Lapland. and Secretary General for the Circumpolar University Association, 1992 to 1998, as well as Vice President Organization of the University of the Arctic. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Congratulations to the International Association of Universities on this milestone. I will take a slightly different perspective now from the perspective of an IAU member, a small university. How can a small university, in my case, the University of Lapland, use international networking as a strategy for its own growth and mission, and also for the sustainable development of an entire region? This history, University of Lapland's history, is very much based on the map, because of the kind of geographic realities of University of Lapland. Established in 1979 and wedged between Northern Soviet Union and Northern Sweden. Homeland of the Sami and also non-indigenous people. The Sami are the only indigenous people in Europe, European Union. Incredibly sparsely populated region. Even today, Lapland, a region the size of England, has only 160,000 inhabitants. So this is the historical starting point. And University of Lapland was created in 1979 to serve the region, Lapland. However, two processes happened almost simultaneously, immediately upon its establishment. Universities started to internationalize, like this was outlined by Hans de Witt just before, and international collaboration became more and more important as something that universities needed to engage in. Second, the Soviet Union collapsed, and suddenly the border that had been closed to the east, only a few hundred kilometers away, was open for collaboration. So that was the geopolitical and academic situation at the time. University of Lapland looked at the map and assessed where its partners might be, and discovered the north, the northern region, its neighbors, and also very quickly the entire Arctic region. Looking at the map from the top, with the North Pole in the center, became the basis for international collaboration. This was natural, as many of the issues were shared by all in this region: cold climate, abundance of natural resources, which were mainly tapped by the south, long distances and sparse populations. At around the same time, Gro Harlem Brundtland coined a new term, sustainable development, and the pieces started to fall into place. University of Lapland's mission became about education in and for the sustainable development of the North and the Arctic region. But how does a tiny university in the far reaches of the European Union, barely on anyone's map, contribute significantly to the sustainable development of such a massive region with US, Russia, Canada, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, and Finland? Not alone, of course, but through collaboration in networks. In the 90s, to be exact, University of Lapland started to work intensively with its Arctic peers on a new type of university network, the University of the Arctic, whose purpose was to, through collaboration, enhance the sustainable development of the region, and by that, the globe. University of the Arctic was established by the ministers of the eight Arctic countries in 1998, and a secretariat was established at the University of Lapland. Today, UArctic has almost 230 member organizations, most of them universities, that collaborate through 66 thematic network with almost 1,000 researchers, has its own mobility program, is able to engage in philanthropic fundraising directly as a legal body, and is recognized by the Arctic countries as a key instrument in, guess what? In enhancing sustainable development of the region. And where is University of Lapland in this? It hosts UArctic's permanent secretariat and leads some of the largest and most active thematic networks. So through proactive work in a network, UArctic Lapland is way bigger than its size. And in Arctic research and education collaboration, at the center rather than the periphery. At the moment, sadly, the realities in the Arctic region are again challenging, with political tension rising between the countries and climate change posing what seems soon insurmountable problems to Arctic communities and people. it is more important than ever to believe in the potential of international networking for the peace and stability of the region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing up a university which actually has its local environment in different countries at the same time, with a lot of tension coming up, and we all know about this. So thank you very much. Then I will finally leave the word to Roberto Escalante, my colleague for many years now in the leadership of IAU. Roberto is the Secretary General of the Association of Universities of Latin America and the Caribbean, and a member of the IAU Executive Board. He is professor in the Faculty of Economics at the National Autonomous University of Mexico. The floor is yours, Roberto. You're muted. Roberto.
I apologize.
That's good.
Sorry. I was saying that thank you, Pam. It's a real pleasure, to be part of this panel. And after having heard all these distinguished speakers, it's a real challenge. To say something at the end, being the last speaker. But first of all, I am very honored, to be a part of the session and to be a small contributor, to this book celebrating anniversary of incredibly important organization as IAU is. The contribution I made is related to some of the issues that have been discussed by the different speakers, in the sense that universities and education institutions are committed in relation to society, to what we know the social responsibility. And I think we have discussed this topic for many long periods of time, and we have always agreed that this is one of the main responsibilities. But in the present period, having all this tremendous pandemic, facing all this extremely dangerous challenge and threat of climate change, having the aim of achieving the sustainable development ideals for the Agenda 2030, universities and higher education institutions have more than ever an extremely big responsibility in terms of society. I think it's not enough, in my view, to say that we have a social responsibility, but we have to go a little bit beyond that. I think we need to clarify very clearly, to say very clearly, what are our social responsibilities. We need a precise agenda, to focus our research, our teaching, our extension, to be really able to fulfill this goal. As Hans de Witt was saying, science has never been neutral. And he was talking about the colonization of knowledge. And I think this is important because the world is extremely divided, it's extremely unequal, and unfortunately, knowledge has been imposed to many parts of the world from the most developed countries. And science that has been created in the most developed countries is not always the best what all the parts of the world need. So that's why we need, as I said, to say exactly what we need to do. It's not the same in the Netherlands than Mexico, Bolivia, and other parts of the world. We have always been taught that we need to think globally and act locally. I think to need to change that view. We need to think locally and take into account the globality to be able to really solve the problem. And finally, I want to say that all of that requires what I say in my small essay, politicizing universities and higher institutions, high education institutions, which doesn't mean by any means taking part of a political party, being part of a political party, voting a political party. Social issues are political issues. So we need to think very clearly and to incorporate into the university's agenda what poverty, inequality, security, climate change, many other big challenges mean for universities in Europe, in India, in Africa, and in other worlds. The needs are different. So that's why I say that we need to think locally and take into account globality. Not that everything is provided in the world by science is useful for every part of the world. My big congratulations to IAU. I feel extremely honored to be part of it, and we will continue contributing as much as we can to enhance the extremely generosity that IAU has to the academic and world in all the globe. Thank you very much, and my big congratulations to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roberto. And before I open for the question and answer and invite Diana, I just would like to say a few words of summary. And I think that, Pavel, you said from the beginning what happened when you were young, and even though you were not there for the first 2 decades, I'm a similar age, so I remember. But unfortunately, we are foreseeing and we are seeing the same task, and we are seeing the same problems and threats to higher education. What we have seen on the better side is that the cooperation is evolving. And what you said, Laura, is important, that working with institutions, but also between associations, is really to amplify the message. And I think that that is a way, and I think that we have started to do this much more today than we did just 10 years ago. And this, a strong voice is when we cooperate. We have all our different specific things to work with, but we have to cooperate. I would also, what Ramon said in the beginning, the trust and the truth. The more we have to work with the society, as you said, Roberto, we have to stick to the values of the higher education. We have to be the institutions which is trusted and is believed to bring the truth, as far as the truth can go for today. So I think that you have put really what has been going on, but also the importance of continue to cooperate and not compete. And Hans, that's the same thing with the international, and in particular the students, that we really see that we cooperate, do the best to bring the value and the process of internationalization, but hopefully get out of the commodification of education as we have seen. And I think that the time is there now, and the pandemic has pushed us really in some part and to the better, but there is a lot of things to really handle. So thank you very much for this, and I really hope, and I will also see that we all engage and see to that the IAU can next 70 years, I won't be there, but that the same views on the importance of having a global voice and having a global community for the higher education is there. So with these words, I will introduce the moderator, Diana-Camelia. You are the co-editor of the book and also senior fellow at the International Association of Universities. Diana is the Dean of Public Administration at the National University of Political Studies and Public Administrations in Bucharest. I leave the floor to you, Diana, to handle the Q&A.
Yes, the Q&A. Thank you so much for your introduction. And on my behalf also, I'm honored and so happy to be able to be with some of the contributors of the book. It was great to see this book from the first pages until the very end, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, so we are now in the Q&A, officially Q&A session. So what does that mean? If you have any questions and you would like to ask the panelists, please do not hesitate to use the Q&A, the discussion section on Zoom. And if you have some alternative messages to share, I will also be monitoring the chat. There's been, since the beginning of this meeting, a lot of congratulations messages addressed to the IAU, which is definitely normal. I feel this, the IAU as a very strong community, and I'm really, really happy to actually be part of it. And until, people warm up and think of all these important questions to ask, let me share with you a very personal moment, because I hope I will have, time. I'm around in this world not for 70 years, but for the years that I have spent, almost half of my life was part of the academia. And this is actually the family and the type of life that I have chosen. Very happy to do so. The first interaction I had with the international colleagues was actually in the Netherlands because of a summer school. It was not Erasmus time at that time. It was, yes, in a way, but not for people that were coming from, a struggling country, just raising a new democracy-born country. So therefore, for me, it was the Netherlands. It was a summer school for doctoral students that, made me click with the academia. And it's normally during this type of events, in anniversaries, that we recollect, all the wonderful moments, and we fill ourselves with hope for the future. But we also need to recall the fact that this particular association, the universities themselves, have had very turbulent times in these 70 years. I mean, it has been quite difficult. Education needed to be provided for fragile countries. It needed to be provided in times of war. Education needed to, find its way through very close-minded people, and it managed to do so. And this is something that the IAU, in my view, in my humble view, is actually something to be proud of, because it managed, considering these very difficult times, very turbulent times, to actually give hope, present people with ideas and opportunities to develop. And I think this is something to consider in this anniversary moment. So I'm looking at the Q&A and it's still a little bit silent there, but I don't think that's a problem, because with this wonderful set of panelists, I was hoping that maybe we can tackle some of your own memories about the IAU and your connection to the international society. I've been actually writing a lot of the things that have been said here today, and it was, trust. Yes, a very big word that was used by several panelists, and the book in itself speaks a lot about trust. It speaks a lot about fighting to get the truth known, fighting to get people understand and once again connect with the values actually of education worldwide. So maybe we can start with this one, building trust. And I was thinking of how exactly do you see, for instance, building this bridge between policymakers, decision makers, and the academia. We are fighting to get the truth out and to, in a sense, create this trust between, people working in the academia, people, trying to make a better place for their communities. So maybe the IAU and other associations can help this process, can help this dialogue, can help this nurturing of trust in public organizations, in private bodies, in making people understand how valuable it is to actually have evidence-based decision-making, for instance. So maybe this is sort of like a starting point, and I would give the floor to Mrs. President Pam Fredman for her comment, please.
Yeah, I think what I think that we can elaborate on is actually one concern. How could we handle that? You say all the threats and all this, but Roberto brought up something that hasn't been discussed so much before, but I think that's something we have to cooperate on, and that is the inequality when it comes to funding the higher education systems in different parts of the world. How do we support each other in this? It will be quite a strong directions to have less public funding, to have more of influence from different stakeholders. And so that's more, I throw this question out to you in the panel now.
Thank you so much for this. And I give the floor to Hans de Wit, please. Just unmute yourself, because...
Sorry, classical mistake.
No worries.
Well, after 2 years. I think the point of indeed combining trust and inequality, which Roberto mentioned, both in funding, but in many aspects, I think is essential. And that's also one of the struggles, I think, that IAU is perceiving, that it's still perceived mostly as a membership organization for the global south than for the global north. The lack of absence in particular from the United States and IAU is an important issue. There is this Western arrogancy of we can take care of ourselves. We need not to work with organizations like IAU to really make a mutual trust with our partners in the global south. So the continuing inequality which is there is a lack of trust that we have in that we can learn also from the global south, even probably more than we can learn from each other. I think that is one of the key things that we have to work on, because what we have seen over the past months in particular, that inequality in the world is increasing. In the pandemic, a very clear example of that, in the debates about climate change, but also in higher education itself, that this inequality is still there. And if we really want to make organizations like IAU representing the higher education community, then it should be that also the global north should be listening much more to the global south to create mutual trust. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I see Roberto, Escalante, Semerena, please. The floor is yours. Unmute.
Yes, I am on. Thank you. I think this is an extremely important issue to discuss. I would like to take into the table the thing, for instance, of the vaccines. We are talking about collaborating, and we need to collaborate. Of course, we need to collaborate. And one of the good interpretations of internationalization, globalization will be to act, if I could say, sort of ideological expression, commits in this, that if something is done which could be good, I mean, for other parts of the world, I mean, should be shared. And vaccines are a good example that is not working. And vaccines and the knowledge, I mean, for producing vaccines has been concentrated in the developed world. Using even is a paradox. I mean, using public money and selling to the world. I mean, all these old vaccines a good price and making extremely good business, and instead of trying to help, for instance, in the case of Latin America, to collaborate with some institutions based in universities to produce our own vaccines. I know that there has been some collaboration, but it has not been enough. We have to go around the market in the world trying to buy vaccines. I mean, protect our society. And the worst of all is Africa. I mean, Africa, we are suffering, I mean, the effects of these new variants of virus. And so if we don't put in front of us truth and trust and collaboration in unequal circumstances, we will not do the right job.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I give now the floor to Mrs. Laura Rumbley, please.
Thank you. And actually, that might be a dangerous thing to do because I don't know exactly where this idea is going that I formed in my head. But I was really struck just a moment ago by Roberto's discussion of, this very troublesome tension or problem that we have of the hardening of borders in the context of the world that we're living in today. It's just confounding, for those of us who have seen the value of transcending borders, to see this happening in front of our eyes. But what really came to mind in just this moment was the fact that even within our societies, regardless of these national borders, we are experiencing a lack of commitment to the public good. And if you want to take vaccinations as an example of that, there are plenty of societies that within borders, there are not everybody is buying into this idea that by vaccinating myself, I'm actually helping society, not just myself. So I feel like there's something very profound afoot in our world at the moment, and indeed that the role that universities can play in very local, very incremental ways to try and help dial down this desire not to play the role that we each need to play in our local societies. So I find that to be a really interesting dilemma, and I'm curious about the ways in which we might be able to find good examples within different countries and societies that might be transferable, in other contexts. It's a very, very powerful moment for this planet, and I'm hopeful that by communicating with one another, we can find pockets of good practice that can at least help to a certain extent.
Thank you. Thank you for this. Pavel, Zgaga, please.
Yeah, I would like to open yet another perspective on this question. Actually, in particular, over the last 2 years, my feeling, and I think it is not only my feeling, has been that universities are not connected to societies enough. What I mean, all this lack of trust to science, which we meet today with vaccination, so on, it is not only a result of stupid people, but it is also a result of inefficient universities. Mm. And for that reason, if we turn now to the international dimension, what I saw when I traveled abroad, in particular in Global South universities, that they are better connected, or at least they better understand that societies need them. And in Europe, here around my region, I see certain NGOs working with NGOs in other continents. And why not to support from universities these NGOs in their common work? And this could be a very good channel to increase not only academic cooperation globally, but also to serve our societies globally and not only locally.
Thank you. Thank you. And I see first, I think it was Pam Fredman and then Roberto Escalante. No, sorry, Roberto Escalante then, please.
No, sorry, I think our Indian colleague was first. So
okay, I'm sorry. I apologize not, for this. So Mrs. Pankaj, Mittal, please.
No issues at all. So thank you very much. A very small intervention I wanted to make, because the word trust, when you use, trust is very, very important. It starts with trust between the parent and the child. It starts with the trust between the association and the universities. And most important, the trust between the teacher and the student. So do we trust our students, and do our students trust the teachers? So that is very, very important. And similarly, the way Pavel was talking about the trust between the university and the community. The community, does it really think that the universities are meant for us? They will do something good for us. Or maybe there's a total disconnect between the university and the society. The ones who are within the four walls of the university, they feel we are some elite people, and the ones who are outside the university are lesser mortals. So the trust deficit between the student and the teacher, the trust deficit between the university and the society, between the university and the government. So that trust deficit is really, really a very big problem. If somehow this trust is established between these, these whatever combinations I'm talking about, I think that will really solve the problem. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Roberto Escalante, please.
Yes, just to talk a little bit again about this issue of social responsibility, using a very powerful tool that we have in many universities and higher education institutions, which is the autonomy. As a way of deciding what to do, how to, the governance of our institutions and so on and so forth. But when we talk about being accountable, which in a way is a synonymous of being responsible to society, usually, or at least that's what I have seen in Latin America, is that the emphasis is on demonstrating to the governments who are funding, particularly public universities, that the financial statements are correct, are good. But that, to me, I think that's good that is done, but is far to be enough. What we really need to know, if we want to say we are socially responsible, locally and globally, is demonstrating to communities that what we are doing is pertinent, is useful, and can solve real problems. And also in a dialogue, in a symmetric dialogue with those communities, because as I have always argued in the discussions that we have in the board at IAU, that in universities we create knowledge, we know a lot of things, but outside societies or outside universities, a lot of things are also known, and we need to share that those two types of knowledge to solve the problem. So I want to insist that we need to be accountable not only financially, being accountable, mainly demonstrating that what we are doing is pertinent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Building good governance and trust among us different stakeholders is really important. And Pam Fredman, please.
I will continue what you said, Roberto, and I think that using the word responsibility translated to Swedish, I mean, the colleagues, they go nuts because they don't want that word. So we have used more social engagement because it's not that demanding on university to take responsibility for everything which is happening in the society. That was a comment. But I don't know if it was Hans or there is a responsibility of the higher education institutions. I mean, we want to have the respect, we want to have the freedom of choosing the questions and methodology and so on, and that is important. But we have to also admit that we have failed to actually tell the societies what we are doing because they don't reach us. And one thing that has come up, and that is we count and we look into merits in publications, in the most prestigious journals, and that's what we count. And when it comes to career path and recruitment, we look into this. But to reach the society, we have to publish in a different manner because they don't read Lancet or Science or whatever. They need to get there. But we don't value that. And our colleagues who work on that and do a very, very good job, they are not valued and they also might miss their career. So I think that there is a thing to start to discuss the responsibility of the universities themselves. There is no government who had set up the merit system. It's within the institutions which have done that. And then I had a question to Outi. I mean, you are small universities and you really is an example of being in an environment because that will not connect to Uppsala University or Helsingfors University. You are much closer to this. So a little bit of your views on the local vicinity and the, the close connections.
Just unmute, please don't forget that.
Thank you for the question. Everything in a way, everything that anybody says and asks in a way, there's a in a way that's quite relevant to the Arctic collaboration as well. And what became, I gave University of Lapland as a case because they started it. But in a way, it is not anymore about small peripheral universities, but it is also very much about the Helsinkis and Stockholms and Dartmouths and really, or Moscow State University, the biggest and finest of Russia. So it's a very, very global, big network that actually values the diversity. And in that network, quality means that you need to have that diversity. You can't just talk about excellence in the kind of terms that universities tend to talk about excellence. And there is no and in fact we've needed to create all of the mechanisms that actually, for collaboration, like criteria for collaboration, has things like you need to have things that have societal relevance. You need to engage the local communities, and the big universities in the South have actually accepted that. They work with these parameters and with these conditions. And so, like Pam, you were saying that universities need to change themselves. They need to change that from within. And our case kind of is about that it's like you're not in unless you accept that you need to be inclusive. And so in fact, this type of collaboration also can in my view sort of really serve as a model of also with the global South, that in our case it is about engaging northern communities and northern indigenous peoples, but in a way you can create networks that are just as inclusive and inclusive of the global South, to the extent that in our case because the governments are very much the Arctic 8 governments. These are big governments, Russia and US and Canada. They endorsed us. So gradually the trust has built, or so that now they don't only trust their own research agencies that produce sort of a research that they have first seen, but they actually trust that as a network, the network can do things that actually provide something for the society. So there's also that very strong kind of a policy and university link, but it takes tremendous work to build that trust, even with the governments, that they actually listen to you. But I think it's a good example that is, you know, it's in a way globally relevant for that, because it's insisting on that inclusiveness and diversity.
Thank you very much for your questions and your comments. And I was now thinking that you know, we are missing a cake, you know, to just blow the candles for the 70 years anniversary. I hope just one candle would suffice, because otherwise that would be sort of you know, dangerous at a point. But in these moments, actually, the reason I shared with you that that personal you know, memory, the fact that I actually was for the first time engaged in this networking of different universities and met with international colleagues, for me as a person meant quite a lot. That made me understand how people are translating their own words in such a way as for the others to understand what they're actually saying. And I think this is a time when the academia once again needs to translate itself, its messages to the society, to make itself heard. And the reason again that I mentioned that personal experience is because it is sometimes hard for people to admit and acknowledge diversity, and to understand that in diversity you actually can find a lot of, you know, passion and fire, understanding and knowledge actually. And I think again the IAU for the future needs to build on this important, and I think great diversity that it actually represents, having members in so many corners of the world, and with an increased network, you know, there standing by. So I think this is indeed a very good time actually to go back to the headquarters, to look in Paris and say and ask actually kindly to Hilij, the head, you know, of the administrative team there in Paris, to give her account on the 70 years anniversary. I know that she has this, you know, the charter, you know, in a way, of the IAU standing, I think, right there on the desk now, if not just in front of her. I know because I tried to steal it for a second a couple of months ago, and she was really, you know, oh, I'm missing this one. Did you take it? She's really passionate about the IAU. At least this is how I see her. So please, Hilij, how is that 70?
I will have only 1 minute because I need to give a little bit of time to Natalie also to reveal who will receive a book, or how we will do that. But I would like to thank all for your wonderful accounts on the basis of your contributions to the book. I hope that all the participants will go to the books and to the book itself and read your papers. We will also probably go back and listen to your contributions and try to translate these into words, and maybe get a little publication out of it, something that would actually resonate with many. And we could do that for the 3 webinars in the series, because your voices are really wonderful. So that's already to thank you all, also on behalf of course, Andreas, who's been the ground architect behind this book, together with Diana, me, and all of you. It's when we started this project, just to say that we thought, how can we celebrate 70 years of IAU and get the most possible voices in? And we thought, well, we could give way to a book of reasonable size, but it's actually really very fascinating to see the many voices that are in there, how different they are, the different perspectives they give, not only on personal personal journeys through higher education, or personal contributions to the transformation of higher education, as you have seen explained by the different speakers here today. But it's really fascinating to see how it's a kind of an impressionist painting. You have all these little dots and all these colors coming together that make for the current state of education, and also really thinking about the promise of higher education and where we can go as a society thanks to higher education. Yes, a lot needs to be transformed, but as you all have said as well, universities are these institutions with a treasure within, able to help think the world to the best. So we should not throw everything out and rethink everything, but we should use what we have and build on that into the future. I think the speakers here today have said that. So it's nice to see the speakers here today with us representing and institutions and themes and associations and organizations of different kinds, shapes, forms, to contribute to the global voice of higher education. And I really look forward to much more in the future altogether. Thanks to all of you, we can do this. We also came through the pandemic as we are here today, and you on your sides as well have been struggling through all the challenges that we face. But I also saw how wonderfully you all have been able to maximize on the opportunities that came with the challenges we faced, and how it has allowed to also reposition the role of higher education in society. I just hope, as many of you said, we have to ensure that the contributions and the voices of higher education are heard everywhere. And as an IAU, we hope that we can help emphasize the important voices that you are all providing to transforming our society, kind of an echo chamber, and push it to the next level. And we will certainly continue to do so with you, thanks to you and for you. And so do always count on us to go to the next step all together, and well, bring in many more people so that we represent this voice very strongly. 2021 ends with
Village.
Yes, we have to
is
stop.
over. You have to get the winners out.
Yeah, I know, but 2021 stops with the celebrations. We will, however, continue in 2022. And the webinar series also will continue and offer the opportunity to continue to think about what future for higher education, how and for what kind of society we want to develop, the kind of education that we need. So we will definitely go further. We will get back to all of you. We will invite you again and again to help voice the different opportunities that reside in education and higher education. Also those in the participants are part of this, obviously, and we just hope that we will be able to continue this conversation way beyond two of the milestones of 22. Remember, there is a UNESCO World Higher Education Conference coming up in May, and there is an IAU General Conference coming up in October 2022. And these are two big moments also for us all, individually and collectively, to make sure that higher education is considered as the key stakeholder in building a future altogether for a better society for all. So Nathalie, would I give you the floor to say and announce 10 of the winners? Or
yes, I'll be very quickly. I have the names ready, so I won't keep everyone long. I have put them in the chat box. I'm just trying to send out this message. There you go. So these are the 10 winners. Congratulations. And I will contact each one of you by email after this session. And congratulations again to
Thank you very much.
all of you.
Thank you. Bye.
Great session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you to all. Wonderful.
Thank you.
You have to unmute yourselves, Roberto.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you all for your contributions.
Bye.
Wonderful.